We've all heard that a portion of our database of buyers are also sellers, but is that actually true? And what do you even do with that information? Great, a part of your database is sellers, but how do you find those people? And then, okay, you find them, what do you do with them? So we hope to answer those questions with the help of Hassan Riggs, the creator and founder of SmartAlto, and Chase Whitney, the team leader of the Whitney Team with First Team Real Estate. But I want to start it with out with you, Hassan. What originally inspired you to create SmartAlto? Because SmartAlto has been around for a while. We're talking about a specific new product launch today, but going back to the very beginning, what inspired you to create SmartAlto in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm a former inside sales agent. I personally made over 100,000 phone calls. I've set over 10,000 appointments, and quite literally, my job for a while was just on the phone all day, circle prospecting, calling homeowners. And so, like, I cut my teeth in the business, face to face, belly to belly, talking to people. And I knew that problem was always there. You know, if you're a sales professional, you need to prospect, you need to get people into the door. You need to build value. You need to close deals. You need to make money. If you're not talking to qualified prospects frequently, then you're also probably not making money. And so one of the things I've always thought about is it's very frustrating and challenging when you're on the phone making calls or you're emailing people and you're getting voicemail, voicemail, wrong number, wrong number. The finally, after like 20 calls, you do connect with someone. They're like, oh yeah, I just bought this house, right? Or I just sold my house, or and you're just very discouraged and demotivated because ultimately you want to talk to people at the right time. You want to talk to the right person at the right time, ultimately by sending them the right message and making that connection. And so, the kind of the foundation of starting Smart Alto was to put really good real estate sales professionals on the phone with qualified prospects who wanted to talk to them, because the reality is the best agent doesn't always win. You can know everything there is to know about helping clients in your area, about real estate law, about building value in a home sale, building value for buyers, but the best agent doesn't always win. And so Smart Alto ultimately helps level the playing field for the small team who wants to grow, the individual agent who wants to grow, or the brokerage who's trying to create more value for their agents, because we put them on the phone with qualified people more frequently. And so that was like the foundation for starting Smart Alto. And then, over the years, we've continued to evolve. We've continued to grow. We've continued to pivot a little bit. As the market has changed, we've changed in order to solve that problem in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, and I had totally forgotten you have a background in the real estate space, so you know firsthand the struggles that agents have. You were an ISA. That's the hardest job to have in real estate,
Right.
or people would argue anyway.
I
Um,
actually started my career when I was 16 years old,
yeah.
knives going door to door, selling Cutco knives going door to door in Alabama, right? So
Oh
I would
wow.
literally on Sunday, I would make phone calls and I would set up appointments for the next weekend. And I would go out selling knives, right, to homeowners, $3,000 knives. And then when I left that appointment, I would go knock on the other doors in that area and say, your neighbor just bought these Cutco knives. And I was 16 years old. And that was one of the things that, got that client facing experience really early in my career.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. So yeah, today we're talking about a new product launch. I think you're calling it a data enrichment product. So what made you decide to create a data enrichment product? There's some already out there on the market. Did you feel like you were going to be reinventing the wheel? What led you to decide to create this?
So a couple of things. When you think about the AI data enrichment space, it's full of people who don't really understand prop tech, who don't really understand what it's like to be in the shoes of someone who is either making phone calls or reaching out to homeowners and prospecting and getting in touch with them. Most of the AI data enrichment products focus on big data, right? Really big trends. So you take a company like Axiom, they work with companies like P&G, Coca-Cola, and they, have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people in their remarketing audiences. And when you're dealing with really big data, the small data doesn't matter as much, right? You can get some small data wrong pretty often, but generally speaking, everyone is in that audience and you're targeting people with a Coca-Cola product or a P&G product. and it's generally going to be correct. In our space, the small data matters a lot because you're reaching out to a person. You want to get their name correct. You want to get their phone number correct. You want to have all that data in your CRM. You want to reach out to that person with an email that actually gets opened. You want to find people in your database who are buyers, who you think are buyers, but also they have a home to sell. So that entire space was really wide open for disruption. And that's the angle that SmartAlto takes, because ultimately, the National Association of Realtors says that 58% of people who are looking to buy a house have a home to sell, and we help agents find that 58%. We push all that data back to their follow-up boss, and then we allow them to take action on it, right? To send emails, make phone calls, segment their audience in order to start more conversations with people and ultimately set more listing appointments. And that market was completely wide open, although data enrichment, generally speaking, is a well-established space.
Yeah, you mentioned one thing just now and something earlier I want to touch on. So earlier you said when you were calling people as an ISA, you found out that they were a homeowner, but they had either just moved or just sold or just bought, and that was frustrating. And so there's another layer you need to add to data enrichment so that you're calling the right people. Sure, let's say 5,000 of your 10,000 buyer leads own a home, but what percentage of them actually need to be called so you're not wasting your time calling those 5,000? And that's what I want to drill into right now. So what source of data do you push over to Follow Up Boss? And then I want to then transition over to Chase, so where he can share how he's used that data to actually identify the right people to call. So he's not just calling every homeowner he has in his database now.
Sure. So think about it. If you've got a buyer in your database, you met them at an open house, or they came from a street text lead, a YLOPO lead, general Facebook or Google PPC lead, and all you got on that person is a name, a phone number, and an email address. We'll take that information, that phone number, for example, and then we'll provide you not only the name, phone, email, but the property address, property characteristics, mortgage details, AVM. We'll give you the homeowner's age. And we got, 180 different data points on that property and on that person. But we only send 11 data points back to Follow Up Boss. And those 11 data points are the most actionable data points of the 180. These are the data points that mean the most. They help you target, they help you segment your database. And that's not only like name, phone, email address, property address, but specifically, we'll send back their age. That's important because now we can segment those people into Gen Z, Gen X, millennial movers, senior downsizers. We'll send back their mortgage rate, the bedrooms, the baths, the value of the home, the value range of the home. We'll send back all these different data points that you can really dive into that helps you better understand when you should reach out to a person, but also the people you shouldn't reach out to. So for example, you got, 10,000 people in your database, 5,000 of them are, they already own a home. We send back the last sell date. So now if it's January and you see that someone just bought a house in December, does it really make sense to put that person at the top of your call list? Probably not, right? So you can segment those people out because you see that that is a very, very recent missed opportunity. And so by having all this data in your Follow Up Boss account that you can then segment and put into different smart lists, Gen Z, Gen X, millennial movers, senior downsizers, it helps you better understand who's in your database and how to communicate with them with personal relevant messages to get more responses.
Yeah, you've mentioned a lot of data points. And so some people's eyes may have glazed over, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. So I want to pivot over to Chase. Chase, what have you done initially with this data to help you segment your database? And did it take you hours to figure out, what do I do with this data?
No, I mean, this is such a great tool because it just empowers you with the information to make a more contextualized phone call or outreach. You can segment who you're going to call, like Hassan already mentioned. But really, the flow is pretty seamless. So it's not even like, I'm trying not to overcomplicate things, right? It's not that this is going to change all the things that we do. It's just adding an added layer and then saying, hey, of our 100 buyer leads that came in this month or last month or whatever, we now know that 37 of those 100 own their house. They're within 10 miles of our market area, etc. let's call them first, or let's call them that extra time, or put them on that extra drip campaign that may push more information to them that might be more valuable than just houses for sale. We all know that property marketing or listings are always what are the most engaging pieces of content in my experience. But now adding on that layer of information about their property is that added touch. So no, I mean it's not really changing what I'm doing. It's more directing my efforts into a better place.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember on our last call, we talked about the smart list feature in Follow Up Boss is such an underutilized superpower of Hub already, because it helps you segment, like he said, segment to prioritize who to call. But eventually, as you add leads to your database, those lists are going to get long again, even with segmenting. Some people have 30,000 people in their database, 50,000, 100,000, and eventually those lists can become unmanageable really quickly. And so adding this extra layer of SmartAlto to say, okay, I only have an hour to prospect. I have 10 lists to call through. Let's prioritize the first 5. Within the first 5, I have a total of 200 people on that list. But let me prioritize to show homeowners that own a home for more, that's worth more than X, because I want to make most money. I want to first call the luxury properties first. And they need to be in their home, like you said, Hassan, more than, I don't know, you have the exact numbers, but more than 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on the demographic. So I'm calling people that are more likely to move. It's sort of like a very clear picture of real likely movers, that you can pinpoint the exact data points. But beyond calling and smart list, Chase, how else are you using this data from SmartAlto?
Yeah, I mean it's new-ish for us, right? So we're still working our way through more creative ways than just, hey, now we know they own a house. When you call them, just make sure you know that. I mean, the one thing I just thought about as you're mentioning that I haven't leveraged yet is now they're not necessarily listings that are on the market, the homes that these folks own. But in our instance, right, we're basically enriching currently, open house leads, PPC leads, street text, social media leads. So if there is some intent to buy, obviously, then there's going to be a pretty high likelihood they're going to have to sell or consider selling. This list then can also, beyond calling this age group owns their house in this amount of time, which Hassan is great at, and we've built the smart lists around that. Now I can say, look, I've got 180 people that have come in on a buyer campaign of some capacity. They own their house. I might have a buyer for one of their properties. So now I can use that list as a off market property list, right? Because we know that there is some level of intent to move. I don't know how high it may be until you talk to them. But that's one more layer of benefit now for your buyers. You can say, look, I've got a giant list of likely moving sellers I can reach out to personally. So that's one other way that I just thought of right now, which is pretty slick.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Yeah, I was just
How to
thinking
make that
about
work.
that. Me as the buyer right now wanting to buy a
And
home.
the one thing, this is so rudimentary, but and I come from a older school approach, enriched by technology versus built on it, to where, we're farmers and door knockers and a lot of direct mail and this sort of thing. So buyer lead comes in, they get immediately pushed to Follow Boss and to SmartAlto to enrich. They come back with a homeowner address. I've built an automation in Follow Up Boss that alerts my agent that says, hey, this buyer lead does have a house to sell. Look at the custom fields for the information. Then on day 14, I believe it is, I have a task going out, send them a handwritten note. I mean, no one gets handwritten notes in the mail. If you do, it might be robotic, right? Or they're automated, or it's a card from your mom saying happy birthday. Other than that, you get no handwritten cards. So, and that script is, there's no rocket science here, right? Hey, Elena, it's Chase. Been trying to get in touch with you. Hope all is well. Looking forward to connecting with you about your real estate search in 2024. Give me a call when you can. Or it was so great talking to you yesterday. I'm super excited about meeting you at the property XYZ next week. Like, it could be 2 sentences long, but with a wet pen and a wet signature on a professional card with your business card, hand addressed, that will 100% get open. 100%. So that alone is a pretty powerful manual, but extraordinarily cost-effective tool you can use now.
Yeah, I still get tricked every now and then. I'm pretty good at detecting whether or not these are like spammy letters, but then I'll get a letter. I'm like, oh, who is this from? And I get excited. Someone wrote me a letter. So yeah, I still as an adult am excited to get handwritten letters. I don't know if I'm
Yep.
the only one, but yeah, I look forward to seeing letters in the mail from family. And back to your previous point about off-market properties. Yeah, that's a huge selling point for your buyers because like I know for me, I want a home that's kind of a unicorn, but it is possible to get. They're just, I only have like one a month in the area that list, where it's like at least 3,000 square feet with an office and 4 bedrooms and either a pool or a backyard big enough for a pool. And so with all of those things and a 3-car garage. So with all of these things stacked, my search results are very thin. I have like 5 homes that I have to pick from right now. But with your list, with the SmartAlto custom fields, you can say, okay, Elena wants this, 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 and this. Okay, here's a list of 50 homeowners that have been in their house for at least X amount of time. They don't owe much on their mortgage. It's worth this much money, and you can call, and you don't have to feel like you're being a spammy real estate agent when you say I have a buyer. You actually do have a buyer. I don't know if you've ever seen that where agents say I have buyers, but they don't really. But yeah, now you have a way to help your buyer client, but possibly get a listing for sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear beyond like the calls and the handwritten note. Do you do anything marketing wise online once you get this data?
For us, so I mean, the workflow right now that I've built out essentially is, lead comes in from, again, street text for Facebook, PPC with Deputy, open house leads. I've not done a big push for past clients and farm, but that's coming soon. So essentially, lead comes in, they come to Follow Boss, they instantly go to SmartAlto, they get enriched, they get pushed back. They're already manually sent or automatically sent to Real Scout, so they're going to get their property search that they inquired on or details around their search. If they are a homeowner and come back into Follow Up Boss from SmartAlto, then Real Scout picks up that address and then automatically sends them a home value alert the next day. And then they're going to be added to that Real Scout seller drip. If they engage on any of that stuff, thanks to Elena, and that seller activity gets picked up, then they're going to get hit with the seller content on the drip campaigns. So that's all done in Follow Boss automatically. The last piece really is that they're then added back into Street Text's remarketing campaigns. So now they have the seller tag, they're added to our seller funnel on that side of things. So now they're going to get buyer campaigns because they came in as a buyer. But now we know they have a house to sell, so they're going to now see home value alerts in their email, seller and buyer content now on the Facebook remarketing, engine, if you will, which is across every website on the planet, right? Because Facebook owns the world. And yeah, so now we're hitting them in, again, email, 2 different ways in their email, in their Facebook, of course, our email newsletters and our drip campaigns, phone calls, in their mailbox. I mean, you got to hit them everywhere. So this is just, again, added context for that outreach.
Yeah, Chase, remind me the other week, I don't remember what the exact context was, but whenever we were meeting in person, you had mentioned something about it takes so many attempts across so many locations. I think this is a great use case for explaining how much it takes. What was that stat? Do you remember what that was?
So that was a book called Oversubscribed, and it was essentially about creating so much demand for your product or service that the line's out the door, right? But the one concept from that I shared that I really took to, because I like the analogies and the numbers, it was essentially to go from unknown to friend or trusted level beyond acquaintance, right? It is, you need to be in front of them for 7 hours of time over 11 different interactions across 4 locations, right? Mm-hmm. So what that means in the book, and the analogy was, hey, you may have a coworker at the office that you see every day, all the time. You spend hours with them per week, but you've never gone to coffee or gone to the restaurant or the bar after work. You've never crossed that 4 location threshold. So they're just a coworker. right?
Mhm.
But as soon as you go to lunch with them, you meet up for a drink after the thing, you go to the social event, your office put together a bowling league, and then you bump into them at the grocery store. Now you've hit the 4 locations, and then instantly that person becomes more of a friend, right? So it's in this instance, it's how do you have enough content online that they can consume 7 hours worth? Video, email, newsletter, ads, etc. You've got the 4 locations because now you've got the phone, the email, the Facebook, and their front door. And then again, can you hit them 11 different times? So I think that's a really great benchmark to set, and it's actually more achievable than you might think. But I really took to that, and I'm actually building out a whole campaign around getting to that 7 hour mark because that's the hard one in this instance, right? So, but yeah, that was the step.
Yeah, yeah. And you can automate it. Once you create the video content that's evergreen, once you create the drip campaigns and the remarketing ads, that's all rinse and repeat on automated rotation, except for the handwritten note. But then you can even use something like Mailbox Power. I don't know if you've used that yet for these homeowners, and send a mailer out with the QR code, and that's another touch point for the person, and another type of material, I guess, like handwritten note plus the postcard is they just kind of see you everywhere. They see you as the expert real estate agent.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Hassan, a question for you. Can you speak to how SmartAlto integrates into Follow Up Boss? How complicated is it to set up, and what does that integration look like?
Cool. So first, Chase, I've never heard of that book. I definitely have to go pick it up. I love that stat, and I love the way it's kind of broken down around the different locations. That's really fascinating. And I'm gonna think back to my life and experiences with people to see kind of what stacks up, what doesn't, because it does kind of give you a framework to think about how you build relationships, like tactically, like how you go about it, which I think is pretty valuable.
But I mean, if you think about it, and it does make sense. I mean, I've had coworkers over the years, right? That yeah, maybe you work with them every day, you go to lunch with them every day, but you've never hung out outside of the atmosphere to where you never cross that acquaintance threshold. So, and again, we're just trying to get leads to trust us because they know that any lead that we're talking to, especially online or open house, they're going to get called or contacted by 3, 4, 7 other agents. So how quickly can we get from lead inbound to them trusting us? So
Yeah.
that's essentially.
Yeah, and not to interrupt where we were going, but what you just said, Chase, is very true for me, because we're just trying to get an idea of what's available in the market and what we're going to be up against in terms of any competition. So tomorrow I've laid out, because I don't want to bug my agent to show me homes when I'm not ready to seriously look at homes. So I pulled up a list of open houses for tomorrow, and I set up a route that we're going to follow tomorrow and look at 6 different open houses tomorrow. So 6 agents. And so, like, to your point, Chase, people aren't going to just want an open house unless they're just driving and they go, oh, an open house. A lot of people will plan ahead. They say, oh, I want to see all of these open houses. And so all of these agents are connecting with these people. Now, my circumstance is a bit different because I already have an agent, but a lot of people don't have an agent before they go to open houses.
Yep.
And so to kind of circle back, one of the things that I like the most about SmartAlto is why, you know, the agents who are using us are so excited, our brand ambassadors and beyond. It's why the Follow Up Boss team is so excited about this integration. It's because we really do play well with everyone else, right? So regardless of who's in your tech stack, whether it's YLOPO, Street Text, whether you're just running Facebook ads, whether it's Real Scout, Fellow, YLOPO, Seller Experience, HomeBot, Agent Fire, you name it. Regardless of who is in your tech stack, SmartAlto plays well with all of them. And so when you think about the way that we integrate with Follow Up Boss, it's so simple. It can take literally 2 minutes because it only has to be set up once. And then after that, everything is automatically pulled from Follow Up Boss, enriched in SmartAlto, and pushed back to Follow Up Boss. So the way it works is when you have contacts in your Follow Up Boss account, as long as it has a good phone number or a good property address, we can enrich that lead. And so the way I ask people to think about this is, who are the leads in your database that you want to have enriched? Those could be high value leads, people who went to your YLOFO website, for example, and took some action. They saved a property, they saved a list, they viewed a property, now they're Y priority. Or someone who came through the lead source, street text, because you're like, all of my street text leads are absolutely fantastic. I want to know more about them. I want to see who has a home to sell, which of my buyers have a home to sell. As long as they are tagged with a specific tag, like street text, or the tag could be high value lead, or the tag could be Oshkosh Bagosh. It doesn't matter what the tag is, but we can pull in, we can look at, analyze your Follow Up Boss database and only pull in the leads that match that specific tag, or only pull in the leads that match that specific lead source. So we can do your entire database, or we can do only those leads that match a very specific criteria. We pull those leads in, we enrich them with all of that valuable data, and then we send back those 11 data points that we talked about earlier that helps you take action on those leads, whether it's, you know, adding them to Smart List, or adding them to Real Scout, or adding them to HomeBot, or sending them emails, making phone calls. And so that process quite literally takes about 90 seconds, a minute and a half to 2 minutes to set up, and then you never have to do it again. One important thing to note that really does make us different is that this works even if the person has their property in an LLC or a trust. So if you got a buyer, we tell you that person has a home to sell. If that person has their property in an LLC or a trust, we can still pull back their name, phone, email, property address, property characteristics, mortgage details, and send all that information back to Follow Up Boss. And the reason I mentioned that specifically is because if someone has their property in an LLC or a trust, it tells you about that person. It gives you a signal into who they are. A person who has their property in an LLC, they're thinking about asset protection. Person has their property in a trust, they're thinking about bequeathing their assets down to their loved ones. They're thinking about succession planning. That person is probably a little bit older. I don't know many 23-year-olds who've got their property in an LLC. And if they do, they're probably an investor, which they're probably out buying multiple homes. So that's just a signal that tells you a little bit about your database, how you can reach out to that person, their level of savviness with regards to real estate transaction and protecting their asset, passing down families, right? The person is probably a little bit older. So there's a lot of signals in the data that we send back that allow you to be actionable, right? So we have a client who recently enriched 2,000 of her leads from Follow Up Boss. So she's been generating these online leads over the past 2 years. She got 2,000 in there. 51% of those people have homes to sell. Let that sink in for a second. 51% of the buyer leads that she had in her database have homes to sell. She's able to now add those people to Real Scout. And so that's, you know, over 1,000 additional people she's now nurturing through her Real Scout database. So we're unlocking value that, you know, previously there was no other way to easily unlock.
So I'm going to ask you a question and then a follow-up question. The first question is, in order for SmartAlto to do data enrichment, what information does it need of a lead? Does it need name and what else?
It needs a good phone number or a good address. That's it.
Okay. Follow-up question. I'm putting you on the spot here. How can you answer the question of, I'm sure people are watching this and there's a level of skepticism. How do I know that this is not just another shiny object? More and more agents are becoming more and more vigilant for ensuring that they are selecting tools and platforms that are going to help them long term, and they're not just like the next shiny new thing. And the second part of that question is the data good? How good is it? How are you ensuring that it's accurate?
So the first part of that is you should be skeptical. You should be skeptical of every single thing that you buy, because once the money is gone, it's gone. And so I challenge people to book a demo with us, come test it out, come try it, and let us prove it to you how good the data is, but even beyond the data, what you can do with the data. Because practically, the thing that the way that we're positioned in the market and the reason most agents should use us, especially if you're running a team, if you got a lot of agents, a lot of people in your database, is because we make everything else that you do much, much better. We are your power up for all of your lead gen, whether it's Zillow or Realtor.com or Street Text or YLopo or Facebook Leads or PPC. We are your power up for your home valuation tool, Real Scout, Fellow, HomeBot, YLopo, Seller Experience, because we help you add more people to those tools. We're your power up for Follow Up Boss, because if you've got contacts in your Follow Up Boss account, we simply tell you more about those people to allow you to reach out and send more personalized messages and start more conversations. So we make your Follow Up Boss better. We make all of the tools in your tech stack much, much better. So if you are going to use Follow Up Boss, pairing it with SmartAlto is only going to make Follow Up Boss better. If you are going to use Street Text, pairing it with SmartAlto is only going to make Street Text better. If you are going to use Agent Fire or YLopo, pairing it with SmartAlto is only going to make those tools better. So that's like the first part. The second part is around kind of data quality. That really goes back to the origin of why we're launching this product. Because as a former inside sales agent who's made over 100,000 phone calls and set over 10,000 appointments, number one, I don't know many people in our space today who's done that and now runs a company that helps facilitate that process at this level. The reason that's important is because if you've ever done that job, you know how frustrating it is to make phone calls and get wrong number after 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 wrong. It's debilitating to your mental health, right? And so how most companies, they have very cheap data, extremely cheap, inexpensive data, and they're like, I'm going to give you a smorgasbord of stuff and let you figure out what's good, let you figure out what's bad. They'll give you 10 phone numbers for one person. I don't know about you, but I've never had 10 mobile phone numbers, right? When people give you 10 mobile phone numbers for one person and they expect you to call all of these people and figure out what phone number is good. Like, that's like the biggest waste of time, but they've never actually done the job. They've never had the job of sitting down, making phone calls, trying to reach a homeowner. And so they don't know the pain that comes along with calling 10 different phone numbers for one person, or calling multiple people in the same hour and getting, bad number, bad number, bad number, bad number, voicemail, voicemail. You finally do talk to the nicest person in the world and they tell you they just sold their home, right? Or they just bought a house. And so their job is to sell you stuff, right? They've never done it. They've never actually walked the shoes of it. And so what we really focus on is providing data that is accurate. And if we don't have a high confidence level that it's accurate data, we do not share it. We don't provide it, because it's better from our perspective to not give you data than it is to waste your time with inaccurate data. And so to that end, sometimes we'll tell you we don't have any information on this person. Although we may have something on that person, it has not met our level of confidence to where we believe it's accurate enough to send back to you so that you have the confidence to make that phone call, send that email, or whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, not to name names, but yeah, there are other programs out there that will just, bombard you with data. And at first that excites you. And then, like you said, you call and call and call, and it's all bad numbers. I have one more difficult question for you. Laws and regulations are constantly changing in the real estate space, and especially around data and data privacy. How are you ensuring that what you're doing is compliant with the current standards, and how are you keeping up to date with the current standards?
So the first one is easy. We're enriching people who are already in your database. So if people are in your Follow Up Boss database, you have permission to reach out to those people. That's the way they got there, right? So they came through, you're running Street Text ads. They have opted in. And so we are adding additional information to those people. The second question, I mean, the second thing around how we stay up to date, we're backed by Google. Google funded us. We're backed by the National Association of Realtors. NAR funded us through their REACH program. And we have lawyers, right? And so laws are always changing, but even more important to you than the law is the consumer preference around this stuff, right? And so you don't want to just quite literally go out spamming people who, with, whether it's automated phone calls or automated emails or automate this, automate that, who don't want to hear from you. You want to reach out to people who you're trying to build a better relationship with because they opted in some way. And from that perspective, we make that process much, much easier, and we're up to date. We got a reputation to protect. That's why, being backed by NAR, being backed by Google is so important. I don't know many other companies who can say they're backed by both of those organizations. I think we may be the only one actually. And so we facilitate the process of giving you the confidence to reach out to people with relevant personal messages. Because if you can send the right message to the right person at the right time, through the right channel, at the right frequency, you're going to get the right response more often than not. And that's what we help you do, regardless of what your tech stack is.
Yeah, I love that. Chase, whenever you were onboarding with SmartAlto, what was that like? And SmartAlto is an ongoing membership subscription. So what has the support been like from the team at SmartAlto?
Oh, a piece of cake. I mean, very responsive. And that's probably partially because of them trying to make this adoptable across a wide landscape. But no, I mean, I've not had an issue once the sync was turned on and everything. I mean, not really had any issues to reach out about too frequently. So no complaints there.
Yeah, there you go. That's what Elon Musk is trying to do. Why spin his wheels trying to recreate a service department if he can just create a product that doesn't even need a service department? So I think that's brilliant to hear. I didn't know that you really haven't needed much support. It's just that easy to use. It's like set up one time and then it works.
Yeah, but going back to your shiny object thing, that's the one thing that I've really tried to get good at, because I was the guy that from 2012 to 2020, it was like, what's next? What's next? Shiny this, shiny that, toy. And it was a constant headache and changing this and adding that and blowing up this system, blowing up that system. But like Hassan mentioned earlier, the nice thing with this is that it's not really a toy. It's just adding context and adding value to what you already have. So nothing theoretically has to change. And that's the one thing that I would say too, because we were talking about make this smart list, make that smart list, and do this and add that. And that's all great if you have the capacity to do so or can hire it out. But you also don't need to, because even if all you're doing is saying, hey, I want to know the enriched data for these 100 leads, and you do it, and you don't change anything, all you're going to then see is when you go to make that phone call, boom, here's more information, right? And yes, the advanced version is, hey, make this smart list, make that smart list, push them here, add them to that. Like, that's great, and that's the goal. But even if it's just, hey, I got 27 open houses, I want to know who owns a house, great, just do it. So that's the one thing is, again, this can be a way to add more advanced filters and smart lists, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, or you can just enrich the smart list you're already using. You're already segmenting your database. You probably have some smart lists that you're using. Just add one additional filter that takes 10 seconds to add for whatever you're wanting to target for age and value of property.
Well, talking about that, I mean, take your not your archive or your inactive group, but take your like C's and D's, right? And so you're going to call them every 2 weeks or once a month based on whatever your filters already are that everyone probably or should have. If you're watching this, you probably have Elena set up. So take that list, and then rather than it's a once a month phone call, rather than organize them and sort them by last communication, forget the filter, just have it sorted by the SmartAlto valuation of the house. And then when you make those monthly phone calls, Maybe you only make the 6 because you only have time to call 6 people. Well, those 6 you're going to call are going to be people that own the highest value property. So you just use the data as a sorting mechanism versus a filter at that point. And that's just, again, other ways to use it.
Yeah, I worded that incorrectly. Yes, it's definitely great to do a sorting mechanism so that you can prioritize who to call. You'd still have that filter because you don't want to call the same high value lead once a day. That's a C or a D person, but you know, okay, I've got 30 minutes to call through this list. 3 of them are high value. They're going to be at the top of my list first. Make sure I call them first because they're going to make me the biggest commission. And then I'll get through the rest because it's still filtered by last communication more than 14 days ago or 30 days ago, for sure.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Hassan, if people are curious to know about SmartAlto, where can they go to learn more?
SmartAlto.com. If you go to SmartAlto.com right now, you'll see our headline that says 58% of buyers have a home to sell. We tell you who they are. Give us 2 minutes and we'll analyze the people in your database and tell you exactly who has a home to sell. Right below that headline, there's a button that says show me how. They can click on that button. A video will pop up that will explain how SmartAlto works. If they're interested, they can then book a demo, which is a button on the website that says get demo. They click that button, something pops up, they can click a demo, they can speak with me or someone on my team, and we'll love to share a little bit more about how the product works and understand your business, what you're looking to achieve. And if we can help you, we would love to work with you. But if we can't help you, we'll also say that too, because it does us no good to sell you something that you don't need or that's not going to be useful for you. So there's no pressure at all. You can, visit SmartAlto, book a demo, have a conversation.
Well, yeah. And then Chase, you've taken the extra step to create a guide if people want to either see how you're using it or they sign up for SmartAlto and they want a little bit more direction. Like you mentioned, specific lists that you use, you've created a guide. So in somewhere around this video in the description, there will be a link to SmartAlto if you want to learn more and a link to Chase's guide. We have like a couple minutes left. Chase, can you just give a brief overview of like what to expect in that guide?
Yeah, that's basically dumbing down this whole conversation into like 5 pages. And 3 of them are like with the smart list mentality and how basically step by step how to create the 4 smart lists. And that was basically bred from Hassan's idea, and then we just kind of condensed it down into actionable advice. So essentially how to create your Gen X, Gen Z, millennial, and senior downsizing lists to take the SmartAlto data and then compile that into actionable calling lists, essentially, or mailing lists, or whatever you want it to be. So a little bit on the strategy and then more so actionable. And yeah, that'll be in that guide wherever Elena puts it, for sure.
Sweet. Thank you both. I think people find this super helpful. I know there's already been chatter a little bit in the group, so this will kind of unveil the mystery around what SmartAlto is.